This is why I love cold therapy. It saved my life. Everything changes when we step into the cold.
Hi, Kaylou. Welcome to the Stepping Into the Cold podcast. It's great to have you here. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, of course. So hi, everyone. I am Kaylou, breath coach and cold water therapist from sunny Bolton. And yeah, it is my, I like to say mission, sprinkled with a bit of purpose, to get as many people practicing cold exposure and breathwork as humanly possible. That is my aim, in whatever way that happens.
Nice. I'm looking forward to hearing about how it became purpose/mission.
Yeah.
But first, let's take a dive back. What was your calling into cold therapy? What got you into cold therapy?
Yeah, so it kind of started with breathwork, to be honest. I had, hand on heart, 4 years ago, never heard of cold exposure, cold immersion, cold water therapy. I'd had like cold baths, and when you used to go to the swimming pool with like your grandparents, I'd go into like the cold shower, but never knew the benefits and never knew, you know, that it could be as incredible as what it actually is. But yeah, my cold water journey started from not the best of places, really. I was having anxiety attacks and panic attacks daily, going back to about 2019. And it was only when my niece, when we went into lockdown in the 2020, my niece FaceTimed me. She was 9 at the time. And she FaceTimed me and she said, "Auntie Kay, I'm really anxious." And at that moment, you go into anti-overdrive and you're like, right, how can I solve this? How can I fix this? Because I'm a fixer. So I started looking online for her, even though I was having panic and anxiety myself. I was like, I need to fix her. And I came across breathwork and I thought, do you know what? This could help her. And as I started delving in a little bit more, the light bulbs were going off and I was thinking, oh, actually, this could help me as well. So yeah, it happened total by accident. I now know it happened for a very good reason. And yeah, was opened up to the world of breathwork. Funnily enough, the power of social media did its thing. I was introduced to a sponsored ad, followed a guy on Instagram, did his training through lockdown, and came out the other side qualified with a whole bunch of self-care tools that I just now need to share with everybody and anybody that'll listen.
Nice.
So yeah, so breathwork first, and then you know this yourself, Dean. You know, when you start opening up these doors to different groups of people, you start hearing what works for them, what they do, where they spend time at the weekend. And cold water kept coming up and I'm thinking, cold water? And all I reverted back to was the ice challenge, you know, when people used to like pour buckets of water over their head. I never really took it seriously. And then I did one cold water session with an incredible guy, Kev from Breatholution, Yorkshire way, I think he's based. And he opened up a whole new world to me. Absolutely incredible soul, creates beautiful space for people, beautiful safe space. And I stayed in contact with him and I thought, you know what, I've got it in me to be able to bring breathwork and cold water therapy to the north, and to open it up to as many people as I can. So yeah, and that's how it kind of happened. And then we went into the second lockdown in 2021 and I was like, right, I'm going back to school, and I qualified in cold water therapy. So now I merged the two together, and it's such an incredible practice, of one which has hands down changed my life, and I'm sure it's changed your life as well.
Definitely. I like to say, so it's like that. Is it that we found cold therapy, or is it that cold therapy found us?
Yes, I love that. I often think that, you know, did it find me or did I find it? All I know is I find a bit more of myself every time I step into the cold. And that's something that, as a 36-year-old female, I wish I knew that 10 years ago. I wish I knew that 20 years ago, you know.
I had a life-changing injury, and like I did my back in, and the operation didn't go to plan. So, and that was in 2007. And
Wow.
I literally like just got so focused. I went back to uni because I lost my job, went back to uni, got a degree, and I still couldn't get a job. So just the way that we're programmed, it's like just keep doing. So I did a master's, still couldn't get a job. Really, the problem was I was suffering with depression from a life-changing injury,
Wow.
drug and alcohol abuse, just to mask the pain. But it wasn't until 2019, where I almost died from all the meds, that I stepped into the cold and everything just changed. And I was just like, where I was, my parents thought that they would get a call saying Dean's been found dead. I was that lost. And from going from a place where I was that lost to like now, when you said purpose, mission, I was like, yeah, I resonate with that.
Yes.
And I was just like, you know, is it that I found, because I heard Wim Hof and Joe Rogan, but really was it that cold therapy found me in that thing of me listening to that thing at that time? But everything has changed since I've embraced cold therapy, breath work, and meditation for me. Like everything.
100%. And I also think, like you said something really poignant there. I hands down believe, and call me woo woo, call me spiritual, call me whatever the hell you want to call it. But everything happens for a reason, and everything in my life has ultimately resulted in something good coming from something shit.
Yeah.
This being one of them. You know, looking back now, when I was suffering with anxiety and panic attacks, when I say they came out of nowhere, they literally came out of, it's like they just dropped on me and I was having them daily. I was in a really good job, still I'm in a very good job, had amazing people around me, I've got a car, a house, an amazing dog. And I'm just like, I still to this day do not know what my trigger was. And I hands down believe I needed to go through that, because how the hell am I supposed to facilitate and hold space for people when I've never experienced that elephant on my chest feeling and that panicky jumbled words and, you know, feeling almost like you're not in the room when you're with somebody? How can I hold space and facilitate somebody through that when I've never been through it myself? So I genuinely believe, you know, people will say what they want with that, but that happened to me for a reason. And I think the same with you. If you hadn't have gone through that, cryo shower would not even be, well, it wouldn't be yours, would it?
No.
It would never have happened. And something so beautiful about that pivotal point. Like, was that your light bulb moment?
Mine, mine was, so I'd been on medication like opioids, nerve pain tablets, sleeping tablets. Like I used to have to take 8 sleeping tablets just to get like drowsy.
Wow.
And mine was so I stepped in because I was like, something's got to change in my life. So I was just like, I was just focused on being more healthy. And the clarity, that was the biggest thing for me. So it took me 3 months just to get off the sleeping tablets at the start. And that clarity coming back. And I'm a very creative person. And just getting these things. I used to wake up at night, like write 10 pages down of just all these ideas. But I got so addicted to that feeling, you know, that those early stages, that when the water, because I was in Marbella at the time, when the water started to warm up and I wasn't getting that endorphin release, I started getting frustrated and I felt myself going backwards. And literally, I had the epiphany in the shower.
Did you?
And I came out, and it was the name. So it was going to be called Cryo Shower. It was going to be something that you could put in your suitcase and take on holiday with you, because I love to travel. And it was just all these things. And when you were talking about, I had to go through that.
Yeah.
It makes me think about that, of what we went through, that it was for a reason. Because even now, if I could turn back the clock, I had a very good job. I had a very good career progression. And at 26 years old, I was on very, very good money back in 2007.
Yeah.
But if I had to change things, I've never felt like I'm on my true life's mission or on my purpose. And that is endured through that uncomfortable experience that we've experienced. And it's to shine that light through that discomfort.
Yes.
And just say to people, listen, there is a way, and it is so simple.
It is. And this is just when you were talking then, this has just thrown me right back to when I was like in my 20s. And I worked in retail. So I worked in retail for about 11 years, started working for a high street chain as a Christmas temp. And then very quickly, without me really knowing, I was made visual merchandiser for the Northwest, for Zara. And I was doing lots of traveling, crazy hours, really early mornings, really late nights. And it started to take a toll on my mental health. But the main part of that job that stuck with me, that made me stick at it for 10 years, was seeing people come alive when they felt confident in how they were dressing and how they looked. When they came out of that fitting room and just seeing them come alive. It wasn't about the clothes, it wasn't the money, because the money was great, like you said. Very well paid job in my early 20s, had loads of savings, it was great. But it was that I stuck around for. Then when I left retail and I started working at the creative agency that I still work at now, I found photography and video. And I got that same buzz when I would see the confidence in somebody change in front of my camera. And now I'm so blessed that I get to see the same transition, but when they leave the water or when they wake up and come round from a breathwork class. And it's, so when you say, you know, your purpose and your mission, it's always been there. And I'm a sole believer in it's with you from the day you're born, and it's kind of nurtured through being a child, really. But you've got to look for those signs. You've got to listen to those signs. Like you're in the shower and you came up with the name In the Shower, and it's a shower product and it's amazing. Like sometimes everything just aligns, but you've got to have that allowance to let it happen, haven't you? Like
Yeah.
I believe that tenfold.
I think the beauty in what you said there, and I think what it taught me throughout this journey. So it comes back to, and you said, like, we were stuck in that ego trap of, oh yeah, money, it's like your things are great,
nice
no problem.
Car. Yeah.
And then you come full circle and seeing that transformation in that ego, but it's that embracing of the ego, falling in love with it, not it being a distant friend, but going, actually, the ego is there for me to use, mold, and create.
Yes. And do you know what? Ego, I used to have a very negative idea of ego. I used to think ego was the devil and that everybody that, you know, ran with the ego were dicks. And actually, for you to step into an ice cold bucket of water, or for you to get into a freezing cold reservoir, there's got to be an element of ego with it to even get you to the point where you're ready to go in the water. I'm sorry. You know, it's not just, it doesn't just happen. Like there's got to be that element of ego, like I can do it and I will do it. So with ego, you need a bit of it, I think. It's not necessarily a bad thing. The same way that anxiety is not a bad thing. Anxiety gets such a bad rep. It is terrible if you're stuck in that fight and flight response, which we know cold can help pull you out, and breath work as well. But yeah, it's how you navigate it and how you use it to your advantage. So using the ego to your advantage, and yeah, I love stuff like this.
I'm really excited. There's like we've got a very strong connection, and I think that we will form a friendship from this.
100%.
I want to bring it back because this is about your story and highlighting your brilliance. And so you've talked about how you got into cold therapy through breath work. So talk to me about that first cold therapy experience.
Oh my God. So it was in a reservoir in Yorkshire, I think, with Kev from Breatholution. And I turned up with no preconceived ideas of what was going to happen. Like I knew I was going to be cold, but I'm very much like, right, it's going to be cold. I cannot change the temperature of that water. But what I am good at and what I know I can control is my breathing. And then if I can control my breath, I can control my emotions and my reaction, and I can control my mindset, and it might not feel as cold. And up to that point, my relationship with cold, well, I never used to have one. I never really, had an infinity with the cold. When I got into the water, it was when I say like I offloaded so much into that water, you know, I left so much shit there. It cleared so much for me. And I was only in there about 9 minutes or something. And I came out of the water, and even though I was shivering and my hands had started to curl a little bit, I definitely done a little bit too long. I came away from that day and I thought, you know what? Everybody that walks this earth needs to feel exactly as I did in that moment, because if they did, life could just be so much better. And regardless of where you're at, so you could be the most stressed and anxious person, but to be able to submerge yourself in that space with somebody that will look after you, that knows what to do if you get into trouble, and just hold that space for you is just, for me, is probably one of the best skills that you could have. And it's like you, even though you have a product, you're of service. Like you've stepped into service because you can help so many people with your product, the same way that I can help people with my skills. But yeah, that first session, and I've built up a lifelong friendship with Kev from Breathvolution. He's incredible. But he started that for me, and I'll be forever grateful, and I'll never forget that day. And I got home and I cried my eyes out like a baby, but good tears.
Nice.
But yeah.
So did you activate your fight or flight response? So you spoke about that you already went in there with a very strong mindset of going,
yeah,
if I get triggered, I know I can control this with the breath,
yeah,
which is amazing.
mm-hmm.
So just to try and step into that emotion, that experience,
yeah.
like, can you try and talk us through that sort of like first, just like getting in that sort of like, right, sympathetic activation gone.
Yeah.
What was going on?
Okay, so I kind of liken it to, how can I explain it? Okay, I'm going to give you an example. So I want you to imagine do you have children?
No.
Okay, no, me neither. But imagine you have got like a sibling or somebody like quite young, and you stood at the side of the road and you're holding the hand and you've looked both ways and there's no traffic. Like there's nothing on the roads and it's clear and it's like, right, okay, let's go. And then the moment you step out into the road with the child, like a motorbike comes whizzing past at 100 miles an hour, and you're like instantly, without even thinking I need to jump back, you've already jumped back. That fight or flight response gets such a negative connotation, and they say being anxious, being stressed, being alert is a bad thing. No. It is absolutely the best thing ever, because there's a reason for it, you know? It's when you're stuck in that fight or flight state, that's when it becomes bad. So likening it to being at the front of the water and knowing that motorbike's going to come, but then knowing that I can pull back and I can control it. I don't have to go there. I can wait till it's passed and then go in. That's the best way I can kind of describe it. If that makes any sense at all.
It makes lots of sense to me. And the way that I would look at that is the way I interpret it was that you're talking about that activation is a good thing. And really it's that. So it's going from that conversion of when we first start, which is the nervous butterflies. We know it's going to be cold. Yeah. We're trying to talk ourselves out of it.
Yeah.
You know, why are you doing this? What for? This is no good. To all of a sudden you break through that barrier, and then it's like, I cannot wait for that feeling. I cannot wait for that activation. That and you feel alive in an instant. Whatever bullshit's going on in your head, it's gone. It's just you, the water.
I always say, my amazing friend Paris is a yoga teacher, and one thing she teaches in her classes is there needs to be less human doing and more human being. Yeah. And I always remember that when I'm in the water, and I think, right, I need to do less. I need to not react, and I need to just be. And I just need to, it's less human doing and more human being. And one thing that the cold will definitely teach you is how to be in that present moment, because when you're in that water, I don't care if you're a dad, a stressed out CEO, if you're a teacher, a coach, whoever the hell you are, none of that matters. None of it matters. It's all irrelevant. It's irrelevant how much money you've got in the bank, how many holidays you take a year, what car you drive. When you are in that water, it's just you and your mind and your breath. And if you can use the mind with the breath, with the body, and kind of squish all that together in one amazing package and be able to control it and be okay with that, that's when the magic happens. That's when the magic started to happen for me.
I really like when you said about be a human being, not a human doing.
Yes.
And it made me think about, so I've noticed now over quite a lot of people that I speak to about cold therapy, and I've got exactly the same feeling here, is that I can feel the energy of being in the cold, and I can feel that state change in my being, just talking about it, and just like the endorphin release of just thinking about the cold over my body, and just that feeling, and that's that sort of like just visualizing myself in the cold, and experiencing it, even though I'm not in there, but we're just talking about it, and it's changed both of our states just by it comes down to like, how grateful are you about having cold showers?
Yes. It's when I think back now, and I think I got to probably 32 years, because I'd say it's only really the last 4 years I've fully submerged myself into breathwork and cold water. I can't believe I got to 32 years old, had never taken a conscious cold shower. Like, I've had cold showers when the water's gone off, like when my mum didn't pay the meter or whatever, but consciously taking a cold shower and consciously being aware of, okay, I know what this is doing for my mind, my body, my soul. Consciously sitting and doing a breathwork class, consciously like switching off. There's something so incredible in those few minutes, however long you can do, that everything just makes sense. Do you not think?
Yeah. And that, just the word consciously breathing, consciously stepping into the cold, consciously loving, it's just, we lose track. So it's like, I speak to some people about breathwork and they're like, I breathe every day, and I'm like, it's not the same.
Dean, when I qualified with my breath, my breathe in qualification, the first person I wanted to tell, and the first person that I wanted to be proud of me, was my nan.
Wow.
So I took the certificate and I was like, Nan, look, I'm a qualified breath coach. And she just looked at me and she was like, love, I'm so proud of everything that you do, but how the hell are you supposed to show people how to breathe? Everyone knows how to breathe. And at that moment I thought, you know what, this is always going to be a resistance, not just from that generation, but from everybody, right? So if I said to you, you know, you're breathing terribly, you'd be like, what? I constantly look at people's chests, and it, you know, some people think I'm a bit weird, but I am obsessed with how people breathe. I was with my friend Paris that I was talking about before. She's got a newborn baby, well, 5-6 weeks old, and just seeing her on a play mat and watching how that baby was breathing, she was taking big belly breaths in and allowing her body to soften on the exhale, and then big belly breaths in. And what point do we lose that? At what point do we start backwards breathing and have our breath like short and shallow in our chest? It's wild when you think about it.
There's a couple of things I just want to, so first one is, I love the way that you said about your nan. This is me and my granddad. I have a photo of like,
I have my granddad's signature here.
Wow.
He's always with me.
Very nice. Yeah. But yeah, it's that's a question that, so I'm very in this thing at the moment of like programming, and where it, like the same thing is, where is it that we lose it? And I'm very focused on like that inner child experience, and sort of like that journey. So it's like that reflection on time, and sort of breaking through. And it's just like, you know, it's like, okay, the past is the past, and this is, I'm very, since cold therapy is about being present, being grateful for something that I never thought I'd ever be grateful for, even being grateful for all of the learning experiences that each time that you go and like, oh, like, shit, I feel uncomfortable. It doesn't feel nice. But with a bit of time, and like you said, like just focusing on the breath and going through it and just knowing it. And because I'm willingly stepped in now so many times, that I know that something amazing and transformational is going to come out on the other side. And
I think it's really important though, with us talking like this now, because I know there will be a lot of listeners that are very resistant, that kind of say, right, it's all right for you to talk about breath work and meditation and cold water and it's great, but how do you get there? I often say to myself, well, look, I was the person that would say, I'm not getting in that cold shower. You know, I'm not going outside, it's raining. I was very much that resistance. And to this day, really struggle to sit with my legs crossed and meditate for 10 minutes. But what's really easy is when you take your daily shower or your weekly bath, whatever it is, make it a little bit colder and just do that little bit. Or when you're in the car and you're feeling stressed, bring your awareness to the breath. Like, these are little things that everybody can do, so that people might say, oh, you know, cold showers are not for me. Well, actually, try it. You know, you've just got to have that little bit first.
I think you've really raised a very good point. And I think maybe if you can, where you brought in about sort of like you used to struggle to sit with your legs crossed and just create that bit of space. Now, I know that obviously you sit there for a couple of minutes and you build on that slowly, like the cold shower, you just build and build. So maybe if you could explain a little bit about your process.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, that might help people understand that we all start at the same point.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll kind of throw back to when I did my breath coach training in 2020, just before lockdown. I came out of that training thinking I could change the world, and still very much am of that mindset, hopefully one day. But when I came out of that training, I was hit by this massive limiting beliefs of, well, this guy's doing it this way, and this guy's really scientific in his approach, and this guy's very uses all the fancy terminology and is constantly throwing statistics at his audience. And none of that was me. And I'm thinking, right, okay, I know that I've got a skill set and can show people and teach people what works. And I know that it works because I've made it work for myself. So I was thinking, right, okay, I need to imagine I'm teaching me. Mm-hmm. And how would I want to receive that information? And how would my mum or my nan want to receive the information, right? So my approach is very much, don't baffle people with science, don't baffle people with statistics, just get them to do it and get them to have fun with it. Mm-hmm. Because if you understand something, and it's like teaching a child, if a child understands something in very simplistic terms and they're having fun, guess what? They're going to keep doing it, and then they're going to start to enjoy it, and then they're going to start to do it as a habit, and then it'll become a ritual, and and that's my approach with it. So I'm not scientific, and I don't use all the fancy terminology, and I don't get you to do all this with your hands. I teach people what works, and then they see why it works. Yeah. And whether that's the right or wrong way, it's working. I can explain something to my 9-year-old niece. Well, she's 10 now. And if she can do alternate nostril breathing by me saying, put your peace fingers at the top of your head, and then, and this is how I explain it to clients and people that I'm working with. It doesn't have to be baffled. You don't have to baffle people with terminology and science and statistics, because that wasn't what worked for me. So I really struggled at the beginning to find my place in the industry, shall we say, because I've been on lots of different retreats, had lots of different sessions with people doing cold water and breath work. And I was thinking, I'm nothing like these people. Maybe this isn't the avenue for me. But then I thought, no, do you know what? There is only one of me, and there'll be lots of me that haven't used cold and breath work because nobody is there to support them in how they want to learn. So yeah, going slightly off topic there, my classes are very fun. I've got a non-dogmatic approach, and children all the way to grandparents can do and do my classes.
I would say, just on top of that, so you said that you struggled to find your place, but yeah. I'm sure you're at the same belief now, is that when we're on this purposeful or this meaningful path that really resonates with us, I don't think any step forward in that direction on that path is the wrong step. It's a learning step. So the amount of failures that we had trying to create a product, and it's that thing is like, okay, that path didn't work.
Yeah.
But you're on this same path, and it's like if you the rain on the top of a mountain comes down, that rain is going to find that path, and it's going to go down some routes that are going to lead to nowhere, and it's going to eventually dry out. But there is going to be a couple of routes that are going to lead to success where that water ends up back in the sea.
100%. And I think what I will, where I was kind of going with that last question was, if you think breathwork isn't for you, if you think cold exposure isn't for you because you've got this idea of what it is from what you've seen or what you've heard, please don't let that put you off. Please actively find somebody that you resonate with, that you're comfortable with, and try it. And just try it. Don't, or if you've, done a cold water session with somebody and you panicked and you thought, oh, that wasn't for me, please find another facilitator that, because you will find your people, you will find the right person to help you, and it will be life-changing. It will turn your world upside down.
Definitely.
And it'll be the best thing that you do. I think, and I'm sure you'll see this as well, we become so, we're quite stubborn, right? As a race, we're quite stubborn, and we like to think we know best. Well, I know best. I know what's right for me, and along with that, we self-medicate. So we'll get home after a 9-hour shift. We're stuck in traffic. Kids have gone to bed. And you're like, right, I deserve a glass of wine, or I deserve a tub of ice cream. And it makes you feel better for a few minutes, but then you still feel shit. And then you wake up the day after, you got a sugar coma, or you're hungover or whatever. But if people had the tools of breath work and cold exposure at their disposal, and they understood how to use them and how to use them effectively, no longer do you feel the need to pick up that glass of wine, because you know that a cold shower is going to make you feel 10 times better, or a couple of rounds of alternate nostril breathing is going to chill you out so much more than, that glass of red wine. It's just a mindset shift, and it's going to take a lot of us, like a lot of me's and you's and Kevs and Parises, to make that happen.
Yeah, I think it's that disruption in energy. So like our shadow self is going in this direction, and then all of a sudden we're like, I'm going to try something different. And it's that allowing that 21 to 30 days, knowing that, okay, I'm doing this because I want to get healthy. I'm doing this because I'm stressed and I'm fed up of feeling like shit, or coming home and just, it's like, if you're having these things that you're saying, or you're not happy and you don't know what it is, what the thing is, I always like, what have you got to lose? And I think this has come from just seeing things of like, my God, like where you said you were like, I don't want to be having all this anxiety and feeling like this every day. And it took your niece to turn around and go, Auntie Kay, I'm not feeling good. And that set you off. Yeah. And then you was like, actually, this can help me.
This can help me. Yeah. And there's something so powerful about holding your hand up and saying, I am calling myself out on this shit. Because the moment you do that, one, you've admitted. Next thing, okay, we look to try and solve it. And then you're not resisting. You're open to, okay, maybe a cold shower might help. Maybe some breath work might help. You've got to call yourself out on your own shit. And there's something so amazing about that. And cold calls you out on your own shit, because I've got in the cold sometimes thinking, oh, I can keep this down, and it's just come up. And I've been in tears, and I've thought, whoa, where did that come from?
It's a very hard thing for people to do, is to accept their role in their pain and suffering. And that's the thing is like, it doesn't matter what's happened. When we come to the realization of like, we are the only person that can do something about it. And that's what we love about cold therapy, breath work, is because it cuts away that bullshit and it just helps you go, I see. And if people are looking for that instant gratification, this isn't the way. This is about life-changing results. You know, a shift completely away from that. You know, we're not looking to pick up the wine bottle to mask the pain. This is of like, do you know what? I don't need a glass of wine. I could just turn around and take 5 minutes of breath work and I feel the same. And then, do you know what? I might still feel like a glass of wine at the end of it, but I'm going to enjoy that glass with a smile on my face and my feet up.
Exactly. And it's the intention is completely different, isn't it? I was on a podcast earlier this morning and we were talking about how do you not beat yourself up? So, for example, I teach breathwork, I teach cold exposure. Total transparency, do I do breathwork and cold exposure every day? Absolutely not. I'm not going to sit here and preach. I would absolutely love to be able to do it every day, but logistically I can't. And where I'd completely lost my train of thought now. Where was it going with this?
So you was on
so I did the podcast this morning, and one of the key takeaways from it was people will always say, I don't have time to do breath work. I don't have time to do cold exposure. We've all got the same amount of time. And yet some of us have got children, some of us have got crazy ass jobs. But if something really matters to you that much, sweet baby Jesus, you will find the time. And whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, if you're taking a shower anyway, 30 seconds at the end, just lower it down to a little bit cooler. You know, if you sat on the toilet on your lunch break, a few rounds of alternate nostril breathing while you're having a piss. Like, it's so you can habit stack. I love habit stacking. I was on the treadmill this morning and I was on the treadmill for an hour and I answered every single email, every single DM, every single LinkedIn message while I was on the treadmill. Burned X amount of calories, felt so much better and got all my steps in, and a habit stacked. I've
done some work with Tony Robbins, and he calls that net time. So using net time. So you're doing something so use that, and that's he calls that net time. So that, you know, it's really, really productive and good use of time.
Yeah. And like, you know, my mum's been, I mean, she'll kill me for saying this, but it's fine. She probably won't ever see this. It's all right. But she is the queen of, I don't have time. And I'm thinking, you drive to school on the school run. In that school run, you can listen to a podcast, or in that school run, you can do some breath work. When you're on, you know, the playground, you can do some breath work. Like, you can always find time. It's just, are you willing to make the time?
Yeah. So this is another thing that where I'm sort of, my focus is on, is like time. What is time? And when and where do we lose the appreciation of time? And so it's like someone said something very similar to me the other day, and I said it's that we've lost touch with really the beauty of time. So because we're like, oh, I don't have time, all of a sudden time is whizzing past us, and we're not appreciating actually how long a minute is and how much can happen in a minute. So it's like, you know, just consciously just take time and watch a minute pass, and be grateful for the sensations, the feelings, the thoughts that pass through our minds and our bodies, and just be like, so that's how long a minute is. And it brings me back to that feeling of like embracing love and embracing this cosmic journey that we get to live and experience, because all this stuff that quantum mechanics, quantum theory is bringing out about the holographic simulation and all that. My God, I'm blessed that we are here and we get to touch and get to live an experience, and we've just got to figure out how to all get along together.
Yeah, do you know what's just made me think as well? Is when people are talking about cold exposure and cold water therapy, and where they go instantly is, and I get this all the time, I hate the cold. I'm not coming to your event. I love you. I want to support you, but I hate the cold. I hate the cold. I hate the cold. And it's like, we've built up that relationship with cold because when we're little, our mum shouts, put your jacket on, zip your jacket up, put your snow boots on, put your gloves on. And it's like, at what point was cold perceived to be bad? And at what point did we start to prioritize holidays abroad in the heat over a skiing holiday or a holiday where it was cold? It was cold somewhere along the line, and I'd love to identify who started it, for one, and at what age we pick it up as cold being a bad thing. But here's the truth: the cold can teach you so much. You can be, you can be so uncomfortable in the cold, and let's be honest, your first session might not be the best. It might not be the most comfortable. But I think some of the best things come out of being really uncomfortable. Some of the best friendships come out of having very uncomfortable conversations. So many of the most amazing things that have ever happened have come from a shit place.
Yeah.
And that's something that the cold, again, really can teach you because, your first couple of times getting in the reservoir, it ain't going to be pretty. It ain't going to be comfortable. But guess what? You're going to feel $1 million when you get out. And you're going to have left so much and you're going to feel so much lighter. But it really is, and I'm sure you find this, trying to explain to somebody how you're going to feel after a cold water session, whether it's in the shower, the bath, a reservoir, or an event, you just can't explain it. You just have to get them to do it themselves because everyone has such a unique experience to them.
Yeah. And it is related to their perception. So one is their perception of cold. What are the reasons that they're going for? Because that cold, that sympathetic, that fight or flight is going to activate all the things that's going to make them want to get out. And that's the beauty. That's the thing of so I try and explain it around that thing of the breakthrough that comes through it. But I want to, you said something that made me think of a childhood memory.
Go on.
And it was like when you said about, where did the perception of cold and that come from? Our parents put your jacket on, it's cold.
Yeah.
And when we moved by the sea when we were younger, I think I was 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. And it was November. And that made me instantly think about the joy that we had, even though it was freezing. And even going in any of the English sea is a cold experience. But we don't think about that. No. And it comes back to what the hell's going on in here. Well, Tony Robbins always talks about is the life that we are living is like the story that we tell ourselves. And normally the story that we are telling ourselves is based on our upbringing and what's happened in our life.
Yes, that is so true.
And this is the thing that with cold therapy is okay, that creating that space has then allowed me to go, right, so I found my mission, my purpose. Now, what story do I want to create? If the past is the past and the future is the future, and it's all about now and embracing, doing the things that you love, that make you happy, singing, dancing, whatever it is. So what am I going to do now? Or what are you going to do now? What are you going to create? What is it that you want to do? Yes. And it's what is that story? So it's okay, it might not resonate with you. You might be in your head that you lay down in bed and you play out that same story of what you want it to be. Yeah. Then you wake up and you're going in completely the opposite direction.
That's so true because we're so hardwired as humans, which sometimes can work to our advantage, but majority of the time works to our failure, where we label things. So we label cold as bad, and we label the warmth as good, and we label that as stressful, and we label that as this makes me happy. Because we label everything, it's really hard to undo that once you've gone, that is this and this is that. So going back to what you just said there, you have to not label, and you have to be oh, I accept that, and respond, not react.
And for instance, if we're talking out to people, I've got 42 years of programming that's in me that I've sort of had to go through, so everybody the way that we all experience life. So it doesn't matter from my perception. Somebody might have lots of money, and our perception is instantly, oh, they've got lots of money, they can do what they want. But the way that we feel pain and suffering is on a very individual and unique basis. You know, but people that commit suicide, it doesn't stop anybody. It happens across the board, wherever it is. You know, mental health doesn't just focus on people that are poor. Drug addiction doesn't just focus on people. You know, it's the way that we perceive our environment and our world, and it's normally about that we feel and see ourselves in somewhere else, and when the world that we're living or playing out is here. You know, and it's that thing, and that's cold therapy and breath work, creating that space.
Yes. A lot of it comes down to choice as well, because, you know, you have to wake up in the morning and choose to have that cold shower, and you have to start to wind down in the evening and choose to put this down.
Yeah.
And go into breath work. And you need to make all these choices. And sometimes I've been there myself. You're like, do you know what? No, I want a glass of red wine, or I want to scroll on Instagram for an hour. Like, it starts with you, and it always starts with you. And this is why I'm blessed to be able to do what I do. And this is where you're blessed to do what you do. Like, we have a skill set that can give people options to choose from, to the point where they're no longer thinking, well, I've only got this option, or I've only got that red wine, because I know that that's the only way I'm going to feel a little bit less stressed in an evening. You know, we're holding quite powerful cards, really, aren't we? You know, with what we do, and everyone in our industry as well. But yeah, we just need to keep doing it.
You're right.
Little and often.
I'm really enjoying this conversation, because it's just,
I could talk to you for hours.
the way we're reflecting, and we're reflecting as well, like thinking about the audience and trying to help people get into just even with the intention of like, I'm going to try that. And when we were earlier on, we spoke about, you know, people that see us having this conversation, this high vibration, like talking about cold therapy and breath work. And it wasn't always like that. You know, when I first started stepping in, and I was like, okay, so I got that first bump of that energy, and I was like, I had all these plates spinning, and I was thinking that I could take on the world, as you said.
Yeah.
And then they all come crashing down, and I must have repeated that cycle 5 or 6 times to when I was like, right, okay, I know that I want to change all of these different aspects within my life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but this is where I am right now. This is where I want to be. I need to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
So what am I going to focus on? What is the first driving force that's really coming through to me? And it's normally around our health or well-being or whatever. We tend to think that it's about money and that freedom aspect, but it's not. It normally comes down about creating, the money creates the freedom for us to then be able to focus on the health and wellness and the spending time with the people that we love.
There is such a sorry to interrupt, but I absolutely need to get this quote in here. I don't know who the hell said it, so I'd love to know who said it, but it goes, for every outside problem, there's an inside solution.
Yes.
And that is so true. Like, if you're stressed at work, or you have money troubles, like, before you even start trying to tackle that, tackle you and be like, right, okay, I need a mindset shift. I need to get more sleep so I'm level-headed. I need to eat a little bit better so I've got good energy levels. I need to look after myself. And then I can tackle external. People have left at work. People are stressed. My friend has just lost a boyfriend. Like, all these things, you're more equipped to be able to tackle. And we use a common example here at the agency where I work, and it's, you've got to put your gas mask on first before you try and put everyone else's on. So imagine you're on a plane and it's you've been told to put your gas mask on. My mum, I know, would run around that plane and grab all of the air for all the strangers, and she'd be the one with no air. When actually, if you put it on yourself first, guess what? You are now equipped to help double or triple the amount of people that you could before. But it's so difficult to get people to switch their mindset to get there, because when you think something's not achievable, how are you supposed to aspire to it? How are you supposed to want to do it? Because you've already put a block in your way where you're like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it.
You are, while having this conversation, you are the perfect example of that analogy, that it took your niece for you to realize that to go that full circle. And that's the beauty of just knowing that something needs to change and taking that first step forward. And the first step forward could be contacting you, sending you a message and asking you a question.
Yeah.
That's all the first step needs to be. Identify action. And it can be just literally, Kaylou, I saw the podcast. Kaylou, I've seen your post. I could see that smile, that I want some of that.
Yeah.
And it comes back to when you said it's a choice, and it made me think about, so like, I don't take any medication anymore. Mm-hmm. And I still struggle with my sleep, and I'll lay there, I'll be going through all the breath works and that, and my mind will start to wander. But I always bring it back to the same thing. It's like, okay, I know I've got the tools, but yes, life is always going on. If you think that somebody has all their shit sorted out, they are effing lying to you.
Yeah, they are.
You know, because we are a world within a world. And
we absolutely are. When I look, it's so important that you said that though, because when I look back to the most stressed, anxious, panicked and overwhelmed times, for me personally, it was the times when in every single of those situations, I felt like I didn't have a choice. I felt like I didn't have a choice. Like I was stressed at work, I was doing overtime. I felt like I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. But sometimes that choice is a little bit blurred because of everything else is so loud. And this is the amazing thing about cold water and breath work. And especially it's like a double whammy if you can combine them. It slows it kind of turns down the dial on the noise and turns up the volume on the inside. And you start listening to how the cold makes you feel. And then you start listening to, oh, my heartbeat's slowing with the breath work. And yeah, it's, again, less human doing, more human being. Every external problem is an inside solution.
It's literally, you say something and we're literally bouncing off each other, because it made me think about like how important breath work is and how important it's been about like that sleep and coming off all those medications. Yeah. And the amount of people that are on sleeping tablets, and it's so easy to reach for that pot of sleeping tablets or drinking 3 glasses of wine or whatever, because you know it's going off. But there is power in waking up and going, do you know what? I did a few breaths. Yeah, I felt a bit shitty, but you know what? I'm going to breathe again, and it's going to activate me and it's going to make me feel good. And it's that, you know, that stacking, as you put it, you know, each day that you go through, yeah, you might, for the first 3, 4, 5 days, you might feel like shit. Yeah. But eventually you get that turn is going to happen, and it's that choice. I choose to feel good. Yeah, my body might be a little bit achy right now, but you know what? I know through this disruption, something amazing is going to happen.
Yeah, and it all starts with a choice. You know, on the days where I've woke up with every intention of training, like training is my solace. I put so many things to bed when I'm training. It's not an aesthetic thing for me, and it's not really a health thing for me. It's more of a mind. I can put so many things to bed when I'm training. It's like my release. And I've woke up so many mornings where I've gone, oh, I'm not training today. But what I have done is when I've gone to the shop later on to buy my tea, I've parked at the furthest point away from the shop, and then I've walked to the shop, walked around the shop, got what I need, and then walked back, because I know I've made a little choice there that has made me get more steps in, which then compounded over time will do me just as much good as a 30-minute WOD would in the morning in the gym. But again, it starts with a choice. I chose to do that. I didn't want to, especially when it's raining, but I chose to do it. So it really does start with choice. I choose to call myself out today on my bullshit, and I choose to start doing cold showers. I choose to pick up a breathwork practice and give it a go. You know?
I'm like here. I'm 100% with you, and I called myself out the other day, which was because like some people are like, well, why aren't you? Why don't we see you using the thing? And what it is because of that thing. I left school, was in the army. I used to play rugby. I used to love running, and I looked good. I felt good, and I did my back in, and I used to use running as my de-stressor. And I go through these like things of like, oh, I'll get focused on training, and then I comfort eat, and it's all this thing. And I got lost in like the creation of cryo shower, and it's been high energy, but it's been a journey in itself. But I have come full circle and gone, I can't carry on living this way. I have to find balance. And it comes back to, like, for instance, your mum, about that time. Right, my morning routine has to be about my health and well-being. What do I need to be able to perform through the day? I know I want to have a family, so I need to set those things now and go, right, I want to be able to provide for my family. I need to be able to provide for myself right now. Yes. And so and that morning part is it. And then there's that element where maybe it can be half an hour or 15 minutes, which is before bed, which is that thing is for you. That sleep part is so important. And not only that is, what are you wanting to send out to the world to cultivate and grow? You know, I like giving, so I have a little thing, which is I'm so happy and grateful. I fall asleep because of my sleep. I fall asleep with ease. I always fall asleep with a big smile on my face. Grateful. And I think about this thing, and a smile comes on my face. And I even feel it, like the muscles and stuff just relax, and the breath gets bigger. I've got more lung capacity. And you just soak into it. And that's something that, has been going on for a couple of years, this training, and I stick with it. But each time, there's little changes, and we don't, celebrate the little wins. I can't remember, somebody said something about, don't get lost with the final outcome, because that celebration, that feeling, that final outcome, that big win, only lasts for a brief period.
It's the journey, everything leading up to it and everything in between. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And this actually, bringing it now back around to about yourself, Kaylou, is what would you say are the biggest takeaways for you since embracing cold therapy and breath work?
I'm going to say it's going to be a piece of advice for people, because I'm going to use the next few minutes to kind of give people the advice that I wish I had at the beginning, which would have sparked maybe this journey a lot sooner. And it would be, start small, start somewhere. If you want to get fit and healthy, but you don't have the mindset to get yourself into the gym, do what I said. Pull up at the supermarket when you're doing your big shop, park way at the back and walk. Start small, but just start somewhere. I put off meditation for so long because I assumed that meditation meant sitting in a really dark room, quiet room, with music on in the background, legs crossed. And for a start, I can't cross my legs for shit. My back hurts, So I was like, right, well, sitting like this doesn't work for me. I'll lay down. You've just got to start somewhere. And make that choice to start somewhere. But I think with cold water exposure, with breath work, both together, with anything, be very honest with yourself. Like we said it before, call yourself out on your own shit. If you're forever making the same excuse, call yourself out and go, no, do you know what? You're saying that a lot recently. Let's sort it. Let's do something about it. And whether that means having that conversation with somebody that you feel comfortable enough to have that conversation with, maybe it might mean writing it down. Maybe it might mean voice noting yourself and then listening to yourself say it. Whatever that is, whatever that light bulb moment's going to be for you, and it's going to look different for everybody, just start. Just start.
Yeah. I like the what was it? Was it the couch to 5K?
Yeah.
Somebody talks about like, okay, just put your trainers by the door, put your trainers on, walk to the door. The next step is get through the door, get to the front gate. Little by little, and I've come to realize that myself, of those small steps, because it's the small steps and the repetition of the small steps that then become a big step. And that's the thing, which is, and I really like the way that you said, hang on, let's just pull this back a minute.
Yeah.
Because people might be watching this and be like, yeah, it's okay for you. You're like this and that. And we all started for whatever, but really we had a calling, which was, yours was anxiety, mine was something had to change. And if we can take away the experience, it's all the same. We've all got a calling to make a change in our life. And by, breath work, cold therapy, just taking 1 minute, even if it's 30 seconds of just sitting there quietly, and then building on that, and that quietness then will help you start to listen to that thing, and then call out, as you said, call out your bullshit.
100%. And it's reframing as well. So a big one for me, like, and this is a mic drop in itself, is reframing I have to and changing it to I get to. So I have to go and do the food shop. I have to go pick the kids up from school. Suddenly, you've already labelled it as being a hindrance. Whereas I get to go and pick my children up from school. I get to go and do my food shop. It's like, suddenly it's a positive. You've taken something that could potentially be really shit and turned it into something that you're actually excited about now. All because you've reframed it.
You've just made me think, do you know a guy called Masaru Emoto?
I don't believe I do.
Okay, a Japanese researcher on water. He's the guy that flash froze water droplets. So we would take water and they would stay there, and they'd be like saying love and gratitude to water. And they would flash freeze it, and it would come out. I'm just looking to see if the book's somewhere here. But anyway, would come up with these sacred geometry patterns. And then they would turn around and then say, like, anger, put it in different environments. And it would come up in it would form like these disrupted patterns or no patterns at all. And just when you said the word, I get to, I had this feeling, this thing, and it made me think about those properties of water, because they even did it based on, so they put a glass in a room, and they got people just to send gratitude to this glass. So it was like toxic water that they tested before, and it didn't form any of these crystallizations. And then they did it afterwards. And so it just makes me always think about the way that we think, feel, the way that we talk to ourselves. Not the way that we talk in general, but the way that we talk to ourselves and about ourselves.
That is so true. And with that water as well, I've never heard of that, but you'll have to send me who that is.
Yeah, I will do.
They do say, and I have definitely experienced this over the years, like different bodies of water hold different energy. So the same way that we're just like bouncing in conversation, and I've met people where I've kind of said 3 or 4 things too, because I've not really had that like that click, like that vibe with. Water's exactly the same. So I've been in bodies of water where I felt really uneasy. And then I've been in bodies of water where I've just lay back and could have just easily just dropped off the face of the earth. Like water holds so much energy and can harness so much energy as well. And yeah, it's such a, I can't express how much I want people to just try a cold shower after this.
Yeah, it's that same thing of, since reading that book, and it's like The Secret Life of Water. I was just seeing if it's like literally I could show you the cover, but I'll send it to you.
I'm gonna order it off Amazon straight after this.
I'm going to find it for you, and it's here because I flew back yesterday.
Find it for me. I feel like I feel like I need this in my life. The Secret Life of, right, I'm going to make a note of this. Masaru Emoto. And how is it written? Because I'm quite funny with books. If it's written fairly easily digestible.
Really, really easy. So I've got dyslexia. So
right, okay.
I find it really, so just like that is like love and gratitude.
Oh, I love that. Like snowflakes.
Exactly. And I just find so like, that's like, so you remember I was telling you about the glass of water where you got people to that was the water, that was, let me just put there, that was the shape that it formed, and afterwards that's what it formed.
You can't argue with science, you know. You can't argue with science. It's there in front of your face.
So I literally, when I'm in the shower, I just feel like I just picture like that transfer of energy that's pulling all that negative energy away from me. It's washing itself away.
Yeah.
And I'm just being like re-energized with all this like new properties. Yes. And it's just like, and a lot of it comes down from here.
I think it's really important at this point to say to people, and this is from your side as well, you don't have to be a spiritual person for this to work with. You don't have to come from this background where you think everything's positive, and you can be the most skeptical person, the most anxious person, the most stressed person, and this can help you. Like, you know, when people have got this preconceived idea that to do yoga you have to be flexible.
Yeah.
And people have got it twisted over the years, and they say, well, I don't do yoga. Why don't you do yoga? Because I'm not flexible. No, you go to yoga to get flexible. It's a practice. You know, the same with a breathwork practice, a cold water practice. You need to be doing these things to get better. You know, when you were little, you never got on a bike and rode straight away with no stabilizers. I face planted so many times, but guess what? Now I've mastered it. I'm pretty goddamn good on a bike. And you can't unlearn it. Once you've learned it, it's like you can't unlearn how to ride a bike, can you?
No. I'm conscious of your time. So there's one, so where you said about yoga. So yoga is something that I've incorporated into my life. I've got titanium in my back. So I've got a bracket of rods, and I've got nerve damage down my left, down my left side.
So do you find it quite, so with your injury, it's restrictive, right?
Yeah, so I can't go on my tiptoes on my left side. So I've got nerve damage, so I have no power. So I'm very heavy on the left side. Mm-hmm. But literally, when I first started yoga, I couldn't even, like, it would just be the top arch of my back and my arms would drag. And I thought, no way. And I read some books by Joe Dispenza and like his story. And I thought, no. And I just started believing, and what really helped me really believe was what happened with the cold therapy, the cold showers and the breath work. And I was like, do you know what? Whatever this is, I know it is.
I always say, send the exhale to that place. So inhale all the love. And then if you've got a sticky back, an angry knee, a broken toe, whatever it is, on the exhale, send the exhale all the way to that point and just let the exhale do its thing. And when you get your mind there and you visualize the breath and it's flowing to that place, and then it's almost like you think, okay, I'm sending extra oxygenated blood and breath and all these amazing things are happening. That makes a difference. That makes a huge difference.
So Kaylou, because I would definitely like for you to sort of, somebody comes to you, and what would you take them through? How would you guide them through a session? So let's take, you said about somebody has come to you, or somebody's gone to somebody and they've got a bad experience of cold therapy. Yeah. And that person's come to you. or you've got somebody like we spoke about that goes, oh, I've seen this podcast. I really want to try it. I've got all this. I heard the word bullshit a lot, and I want to get rid of my bullshit. So what would you say to them? So they've messaged you and they're like, but I'm not sure. One is, what would you say to them to get them to sort of come to you? And then what is that process that you would sort of take them through, that first sort of introduction?
Absolutely. So what I will say is, and I actually emailed somebody back this morning, there are people that come to me that I have said, I can't facilitate for you, because morally, I don't feel like by taking somebody's money, I can't exchange what they need. So, for example, a gentleman came to me early last year. He had a little bit of a dicky heart. He'd booked him for surgery, and he was like, I just want to do a cold water session before I go in for my surgery. And I very politely explained to him, number one, the risk. Yeah. Number two, the implication of getting in the water when your heart is going through stress anyway. And I got an awful email back. It was horrible. And as a typical people pleaser, I was really hurt, but I thought, no, do you know what? I've done my bit, and I've hopefully educated that gentleman enough to not do a cold exposure session. But what I will say is, back to your question, it's total dependent on the person that is in front of me. So if somebody comes to me and they're super anxious about the practice, about even being there in the swimsuit, for example, that for a female and for a male might be a real, before you've even thought about getting in the water, you know, you're stripping half naked in front of a total stranger. That's a big thing. First, it's identifying what they're, where they're at. And generally you can tell by how they are, how they're carrying the shoulders, where the breath's at. So I'll kind of navigate that for a few minutes, work out where I feel they are, and ask specific questions to either confirm or deny whether or not I'm right. And then I'll tailor a breathing technique to whatever they need at that moment in time. So if it's somebody that's come to me quite stressed, quite anxious, they're wired, they're kind of all over the place, my first thing before I even introduce the water is, right, okay, we need to down-regulate the nervous system. We need to get you nice and calm, mind nice and clear, nice and balanced, and I'll hold that safe space for you. Some people it can happen within 5 minutes. Some people it takes 50 minutes, but I'm there for as long as it takes. And then once we're at a good point in terms of the heartbeat slowed, they're much more kind of calm, that's obviously when we introduce the water. For some people, the session's over in 30 minutes. For some people, the session takes 3 hours. It is what it is. Everyone's different. There is no one size fits all with cold water and breath work. And with most holistic approaches, there's no one size fits all. But one thing I will say about my sessions is everything is tailored to you. Whatever you need, you will get from that session. But yeah, everybody's different. So it's really difficult for me to kind of talk you through a process when it really is case by case. I had, on the last event that I did, the Eye to Water and Dynamic Breathwork event, there was one lady there, absolutely incredible. She was a runner. And you think in your head, runners, really good cardiovascular, the breathing will be on point. And this lady panicked. She panicked so much that I kind of set everyone up with another breathing practice and just focused on this lady. And my main thing was, I've got 12 people here in this session. I don't want to make her feel any more panicked. So I made sure everyone else was okay, and then I focused on her. And that's the first time I've ever had to do that in a group event setting. But again, the coach, the nurturing side of me just wanted to make sure she was okay, and that they weren't affected by it, that they didn't panic because they were seeing somebody else panic, but that she didn't panic anymore, that nobody else around her was panicking. Yeah. So it really is very case by case. There are people out there that will take 30, 40, 100 people in the water all at the same time, and that will never be me, because I'm a firm believer that everyone needs something different. So I cap my sessions at 6, because I believe that's what I can give full attention to, and if anyone becomes distressed at any point, I can manage that. But yeah, hopefully that answered the question.
It did.
I actually forgot what the question was.
It was one. What would you say to somebody that's on the fence, or they're going to try it for the first time and they've messaged you, and really what that process was? But what I really like is that we spoke about during the podcast about how the bullshit is unique to our experience, and I really like the fact that you help people identify what that bullshit is, and we deal with that specific thing. And it might be next week it's another bit of bullshit, but it's different, so we deal with that one. And I really like that. And so it's whatever is at the forefront, whatever it is that's there, that's what you work with. And I really like that. And that individualized, that personal feeling and relationship, because a lot can happen in breath work and cold therapy. It can activate a lot of emotions that need to be let go. And if you are in a large group and you've been triggered, you know, like you said, that if you hadn't have dealt with the people that were around and went straight to this lady, everybody would have gone, oh, and it would have literally, like a chain reaction, everybody else would have more or less been like that one lady.
Exactly. It multiplies.
Really what you did is you was like, okay, are you okay? Are you okay? And I really like that. And then you moved in, and also you allowed her to experience some more discomfort, whereas some people might have dived straight there. So it was like, okay, she's going to sit with that a little bit longer, and then you come in.
And what was incredible about that I learned, and I always say, when one person teaches, two people learn. What I learned from that solo incident, well, I say incident, it wasn't an incident, that solo situation was, she said to me after the session, I've been a runner for 20 odd years. I run to clear. She's like, I run forward to try and get through whatever it is I'm going through. She said, and I have never managed to break through that wall like I just did.
Wow.
And I was just like, I thanked her. And then, this is so unprofessional of me, I took myself off to the bathroom and I cried. Because I'm only human.
Yeah.
You know, that is something so, I'm getting emotional thinking about it, but that is something that means more to me than any amount of money, any amount of exposure, any amount of likes or anything. The fact that one lady saying that just made me realise that I'm on the right path and I'm doing the right thing. It only takes one person.
And maybe you should have let that emotion out there with her and embraced it with her.
In hindsight, I absolutely should have, because what I actually did was the total opposite of what I teach. And it's, if it needs to come, let it come and let it go. I should have let my guard down.
Exactly.
Been vulnerable with her. That's the first. It's so funny you should say that, because it's the first thing I thought when I got home.
That thing of like, thank you, that means so much to me. The emotion comes out. This is why I decided, I had a personal transformation, and I wanted to, and just to see that happen with you, that felt sense, that transfer of energy, beautiful.
Love it.
Yeah. Kaylou, wow.
What an amazing conversation.
Yes, I've loved every moment of it. It literally. So like normally they go off on a tangent, and we went off on a tangent, but it was so relevant. And I was like, okay, we are flowing. There's so much value that's coming here that I literally just let it go. And it was very interactive. And I hope that people come away from this and they go and message you. And they just reach out. Your energy is amazing.
Thank you.
And I really hope and I wish you all the best. And I want you to literally let people know where they can find you. I will write down in the text that's going to be below your handles. Yeah. But we are going to start moving the podcast onto audio form, whereas there won't be a big description. So if you let people know where they can find you, connect with you, reach, ask you a question.
Yeah, definitely. Great. I mean, social media is my world. So the easiest, quickest way to get hold of me is probably Instagram. That's where I spend a lot of time. And you can find me on 2 pages. So the Kaylou Club page, that's KaylouKlub. So Kaylou Club, that's my community. I spend a lot of time there. And then there's my personal page, which is Kaylou Haskins. So KaylouHaskins. And that's on social. And then there is the Facebook page, both of those names the same. And then if you're an emailer, or you're a webby person, the website is www.coldwatertherapy.co.uk. And you can just hit me an email on there and I'll respond I always try and respond to people within 24 hours. But yeah, or just send a message on here or a comment wherever you put this and I'll pick it up. And hopefully we can get more people practicing cold showers, cold exposure, breath work. Yeah, and doing it safely.
Definitely. So, Kaylou, just if there's any closing, anything else that you want to add, I always like handing the last comments to the guest, and you've been an absolutely amazing guest.
Oh, bless you. Thank you.
The floor is yours. Whatever you want to say.
Oh,
keep
wow,
it PG.
You should never give me the floor. I think no matter where you've picked this up from, so whether it's been you've had a shit morning and you've gone, oh, this might be of interest to me, or you've thought, oh, well, maybe I want to see what this conversation is, just remember that it starts with you. So that could start with a podcast that you've heard, a conversation that you've overheard, a text message that you've had, something you've watched on TV or read on social media. It starts with you. And we've said it before, you have a choice. You can make a difference. Yeah. And reminding people that you are enough as well. You know, and I've been there, I've been feeling so shit where I've cancelled calls from my mum and I've cancelled training classes, and I've been really horrible with people that I love because I've been in a shit place. Yeah. And that's not on them, that's on me. So just, you know, if you're listening to this and if anything you take away from this is just know that you're not on your own and yeah, that you are enough. But it really does, polite reminder, it starts with you. Like, you have to call yourself out on that bullshit. That's probably the main takeaway, I think, from today.
Awesome. Kaylou, thank you so much.
You are very welcome. Same time next week.
Yeah.